I don't think that it's too much of a controversial statement to say that The Lord of the Rings is one of the greatest works of fiction ever to be created. J.R.R. Tolkien crafted three of the most iconic pieces of literature ever to be written. They're probably some of the most popular books in the entire world. But not only are they phenomenal books, we are fortunate enough to have had a team of passionate filmmakers pour their hearts and souls, led by Peter Jackson, into creating one of the best film trilogies ever to don the silver screen in The Lord of the Rings, which came out in between 2001 and 2003. Maybe some of the best winters of going to the movies in my entire life. I'll never forget the great impact it had on me as an individual, watching Frodo and the hobbits leave the Shire running from the Black Riders, being very small and insignificant in the world they were living, and eventually watching them become some of the most important heroes in all of the world. The journeys in Tolkien's Middle-earth through The Lord of the Rings really does have something for everybody. Timeless themes that can be relatable in all areas of life. And there is so much heart and excitement within these tales that it is so hard to not be glued to the screen or the page while you are taking them in. And so, needless to say, when I found out Amazon had gotten the rights to adapt Lord of the Rings into a television series back in 2017, I was very excited for what could be. We were at a point in time where Game of Thrones was the hotness. Everybody was fawning over how good this television show was, and I don't know if people still love it nearly as much as they did then, but it had a pretty good run. And so to think that in the midst of Game of Thrones hype, we were going to have an on-screen adaptation of Lord of the Rings in television format was pretty exciting. And I remember finding out about this and hyping myself up over what could be. And I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen. And one of the early pitches and ideas that I heard for the show, I actually thought would have been a pretty good adaptation, and that was taking the journeys of a young Aragorn and making a television series about that. And that was one of the rumors I heard, which was confirmed in a recent Entertainment Weekly article that was one of the early pitches. Unfortunately, that one didn't win out for whoever came up with that idea, and possibly unfortunately for us, because that would have been pretty cool to see. But you know what? When I found out what was going to be made, I'm going to be completely honest. At first, I was excited. And then the more I thought about it, my expectations for what this series could be started to be tempered a little bit. Mainly because of the massive amount of silence that we had from Amazon for so long. They really didn't reveal too much about the show, and then last winter they released their fantasy series, The Wheel of Time, and I'm going to be completely honest, I found it to be rather more of a letdown than something I was excited to watch week after week. It was a decent enough show, but it really strayed really far from its source material, and honestly felt a little cheap at times. And so after seeing that with Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time adaptation, I began to get a little bit concerned over what might be coming with Lord of the Rings. Does Amazon really have what it takes at Amazon Studios to adapt something like Lord of the Rings into the television show that it really deserves? And so we have had information trickle out. We've had teaser after teaser. We've had articles. We've had images. And my expectations for the show have definitely been tempered. Finding out that they were making a show in the setting of the Second Age rather than something in the Third Age was pretty concerning to me, because it is the period of time that Tolkien has written the least about. I had no expectation that they were going to be able to adapt the First Age, that is Tolkien's Silmarillion, into a show, because that has been safeguarded by the Tolkien estate pretty tightly for a long time. And as time's gone by and the marketing has picked up for this show, we're just a month away from getting this show on the screen. I feel like I haven't really seen nearly as much excitement as I have trepidation for people who are getting ready for this show who are hardcore fans. But honestly, I don't really want to pile on to the arguments of why this show might be bad based on what we've seen. There's definitely causes for concern and red flags, and there's a ton of videos and commentary and people writing about that on the internet. But I just wanted to take some time to make a video that highlights 3 reasons why I'm still excited about Amazon's The Rings of Power, in spite of my tempered expectations. So reason number 1 why I'm excited is that it's going to create a new generation of fans. And I'm not saying new generation as it's only going to be young people drawn to Middle-earth for the first time, but it's legitimately going to draw people to The Lord of the Rings for the very first time in all stages of life. Maybe they've never checked out the movies or the books before. We're going to get new fans who are going to be excited about Tolkien's world, and honestly, that's something that I'm optimistic about and always looking forward to. I'll never forget the first time that I really became a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I had gone to a Borders Books with a friend of mine, and we had seen these cool promotional images of Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring that was coming out that winter. And he told me, hey, my parents made me read these books over the summer, and they were really good, and I can't wait for the movie to come out. And he pointed me in the direction of reading The Hobbit, and I was like, I know about The Hobbit. I used to watch that animated movie all the time as a kid. And so there was an instant connection there, but what really hooked me were the iconic promotional images for Fellowship of the Ring. And there's going to be someone out there who has that same first impression of Lord of the Rings from The Rings of Power. Maybe it's an image that they saw that they're excited about, a trailer, or something that they legitimately watch in the show. And for that person, I am really excited, and if you stumble upon this video, welcome to the fandom of Lord of the Rings. Reason number 2 why I'm excited to watch this show is because I am extremely curious what all the money they've put into the show is going to produce. It has been reported that the first season of the show is going to cost nearly $500 million. That is a lot of money. That is the most expensive television series ever made. And I'm very curious what that type of money is going to be able to produce. Now, I do think because of that budget, the show is going to fall under more scrutiny than getting praise for spending that money, and that is just a reality that they are going to have to face. But the truth is that if they can prove that spending this type of money on an intellectual property like Lord of the Rings gets you a return on investment, and that's going to mean a good quality show, then maybe you'll see more studios go very aggressive with big budgets for epic television adaptations. Now, it sounds like The Rings of Power is probably just going to be an 8-hour movie, and for me, that's fine. But I'm curious if this is something that is going to pay dividends for Amazon and potentially start a trend for other iconic intellectual properties going forward. And lastly, the third reason why I am excited for this show is because if it is successful, it is going to continue to increase the amount of fantasy intellectual properties that we are going to get on screen. Now, inevitably, when some type of genre is popular, you're going to get good and you're going to get bad. In fact, you're probably mostly going to get bad. But the reality is that I have been craving good on-screen fantasy entertainment for a while. I watched Game of Thrones for the first time in 2021, so I missed out on that whole trend. It was very good. I enjoyed it. Yes, the ending wasn't great, but I really hope that we can continue to get good on-screen fantasy entertainment. It is my personal favorite genre. I think there's a lot of potential in there. But I also think it requires a lot of money and big budgets to make it feel grounded and believable and not cheap. And also, there is a lot of really tacky fantasy writing out there, which is why Lord of the Rings is the perfect setting for the genre of fantasy. It is written in such a way to feel historical, but also at the same time magical. But the magic is more mysterious, not in your face and not obnoxious, but you know that it is there. And if the show can handle fantasy well, we're going to see more fantasy intellectual property. We already have things that are going to be coming out this year. You have things like House of the Dragon, The Rings of Power. You got a Dungeons and Dragons movie coming out in the spring. And if these things can prove to be successful, eventually I think we're going to find the next big deal fantasy intellectual property. If I'm going to be completely honest, a lot of the stuff I've seen recently hasn't really won me over. Like, I'm not a huge fan of Wheel of Time, or the Witcher series is a little bit disappointing, but I'm hoping that the Rings of Power is the one that I have been hoping it will be for so long. But that's enough from me. I want to know what you guys think about the Rings of Power coming out. What are your excitement levels? Are you extremely hyped? Are you just a little bit hyped? Are you not hyped at all? For me, I called this video my hype check. I'm going to give it a score out of 5. I'm going to say my hype level for the Rings of Power is at a 3 out of 5 right now, which I would consider to be on the positive side. My expectations are definitely tempered, but nonetheless, I'm still looking forward to watching this show when it is eventually released within the next month. So let me know your thoughts. Please subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. I'm going to be talking a lot of Lord of the Rings, House of the Dragon. The Sandman is coming out, so I'll probably be talking about that. So please subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it, and we will talk to you next time on Parallel Quest. Bye-bye.